don't want that type of misinformation spreading and causing actual material harm and death in the United States. I agree that it's okay to push back against it, but I don't agree it's okay to go and just be like, oh, well, they're just doing it because they're ideologically partisan and they hate the United States and they hate freedom. I think there are legitimate reasons to push back against this kind of stuff.
I want to make a really boring, nuanced argument, which is that I think that we live in the real world where there are trade-offs to everything, right? And I agree with you that if you allow anybody to post whatever they want to at any time on these social media platforms, there are going to be negative consequences to it, obviously. I think we have to choose between a world in which we suffer those negative consequences, just like we suffer negative consequences to free speech in a democracy that people are going to abuse and they're going to be Holocaust deniers or whatever, and they're still going to have that speech constitutionally protected because we've made the decision that even though there are risks to allowing that kind of speech, it's worth it for a functioning democracy. So I would say that, yes, there are going to be negative effects. We'll never get rid of that. But then we have to look at the trade-offs of the alternative. And I think we've seen the trade-offs of the alternative. The Twitter files helps to reveal some of those trade-offs, which is handing over control over our discourse and over our speech rights to unelected corporate executives. And there's a whole bunch of problems that come along with that as well, even when they're trying to act on the best faith possible, which I think in most cases at Twitter, they were, although not in all cases. And you could imagine a situation in which it was another company where they were less disposed to making those decisions in good faith and were maybe more nakedly partisan, where you didn't have a Yoel Roth, who, again, even though he's been villainized as a result of the Twitter files, I think was actually one of the heroic actors there, because I think the guy had a lot of integrity in the decisions he made. That wouldn't necessarily be the case with somebody else. So, I think that there are trade-offs to each, and I would say that the danger, I mean, maybe this is the just civil libertarian in me, but I think the danger coming from the government having its power over this stuff versus the unorganized masses, I would side with the unorganized masses, and I would take that downside over the downside of handing over that control to corporate executives and government bureaucrats.
Sure.
Steven, I'm curious what process you would like to see, because maybe you can acknowledge that it was a little bit too heavy-handed.
I don't have to. Jack himself has said that, right? I think it probably was, right?
Okay, so because it was obviously too burdensome for the government to go through the legal process, which has to do getting subpoenas, getting court, doing that for each of these pieces of content. They couldn't handle it. That's why they didn't do it. That's why they just sent over huge spreadsheets. So a lot of it has to do with the fact that social media is new, and the legal process hasn't even caught up to the velocity with which content flows through social media. So, but that's a legal change that has to happen.
Sure.
That's not social media. It's not social media companies' fault that the government hasn't caught up.
So, okay, we've had this conversation for however long. It's been about an hour, I think. Okay, this is my issue with things like the Twitter files, okay? What Leighton just recently said and what you asked, I wish that was what the entire conversation was about. Instead of Twitter is this partisan hack company that the FBI is trying to use to destroy Democrats, and they're trying to get rid of the COVID misinformation because Fauci and Pfizer and the investments, is all of these plots. I think that the conversation should be, the government is obviously going to have some sort of input into the largest corporations in the United States. We would expect them to. We would probably want them to. We want the government to have some sort of insight into what goes on at ExxonMobil, what goes on at Facebook. These are things that I think a general US citizen has an interest in. But there's also a legitimate interest in what type of input do they have, how public should that input be, how much transparency is there into that, and at the end of the day, what should the ultimate say of the executive branch or any part of the government be for any of these companies? These are really good questions, and we don't have any conversations about it. I feel like instead what ends up getting fixated on is the hyper-partisan nature of everything that's being pushed and published about it, and then we basically just get into these huge conversations on was the White House trying to save the Biden presidency or not, rather than what is an appropriate amount of input the government should have for these platforms. For Bill, the question you asked, I don't even know what the right answer is. I think some additional level of transparency would be good. Maybe some sort of, how hedge funds and stuff have to publish positions in tax forms and stuff to show what they're short on, what they're long on, what they hold. Maybe some sort of publishing at the end of the year where social media companies publish non-subpoenaed requests from intelligence communities. Hey, just so you know, maybe they might already do that. I just don't know it, right? But maybe hey, at the end of the year, this many requests were made by the FBI. Maybe there's some level of even public information about it. There were 400,000 accounts that they requested us to look into, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that type of mandatory reporting, if there's any engagement between a federal agency and a private firm happens, maybe that would be like a step in that direction, something to have that kind of transparency bill. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, one other key question, because you keep talking about the narrative around Twitter files, and I'm very curious from Leighton and David. How do you feel about the Twitter files being the name of all of these reports with different reporters? You've got Elon having, his 2 cents on it. You're all kind of getting lumped into this one brand, even though, you may, Barry and Elon were even kind of feuding a little bit. She wouldn't respond to him when he was kind of trying to demand some answers from her. And so, I'm curious how that feels, because I think it speaks to Destiny's point a little bit.
David, I don't know if you want to take that first or second.
Sure. I was just trying to look it up right now, but I saw this guy, this California state senator, I forget his name, Weiner, maybe.
Scott Weiner.
Yeah, I think he tweeted yesterday. He said something about the Twitter files and this sort of Elon Musk, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to the effect of Elon Musk, the Twitter files, right-wing propaganda machine. And I'm like, that is just such an absurdist statement, particularly for anyone to make, but in particular a guy who's a state senator, who has a large platform. I know just from talking with Leighton and the other guys, I don't think any of the reporters on the Twitter files are right-wing. We're all either blatantly liberals or independents, politically. So the idea that this is this right-wing propaganda machine is so absurd. None of us work for Elon Musk. He had zero involvement, at least to my knowledge, of anything that I was doing, any of my reporting. He functioned more or less as a whistleblower, I guess, in that role, but albeit a very unique one, where he gave us access to be able to do some searching on internal files of this company. That's it. He put the key in the door for us, but he had no involvement, as far as I'm aware, in any of the material that we were able to look up. So I think the state senator's tweet sort of gets to what you're arguing about, this notion of like the narrative. Well, that's to some extent a narrative that you and other people are interpreting. And by the way, I think your questions it's funny, this is a thing that journalists often talk about. After every article you write, there's always someone who tweets something, you should have written this type of story instead. And sounds like, it's like, I appreciate that. You wish the story was something different, that it had a different angle. And I am interested in the questions you raised here in our conversation. I would love to see a larger conversation about that. But I think in order to even get to that conversation, we first, as investigative reporters, in this function, were initially just bringing things to light to start that conversation. So I'm not opposed to that conversation. I don't even think necessarily I'm the appropriate person to be having that conversation. I don't have a stronger knowledge of the ethics and legal components of how these, platforms should function necessarily than anyone else. So I feel like there's just a few different things being conflated. You sort of revealed at the end that you wished this more philosophical conversation about what's appropriate was what the reporting really was on. But that's not necessarily what investigative reporting is. At least for me, in my reporting, I wasn't taking that type of stance. I wasn't trying to answer.
Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Holy shit. Wait. No one, this is... Holy shit. Holy shit. Holy shit. Oh my god. I can't. What the fuck? Wait. Wait. Oh my gosh. 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 That's it. That's it. That was it. That was it. We just had that annoying fall at the beginning of Vaporwave, which cost us probably like, I don't know, 4 seconds, so it could have been an 816, but oh my gosh. Holy fuck, dude. Holy shit. Holy shit. Oh, this is so great. Oh my god.